Everybody, Kemo Sabi here, coming at you with another video. This one's off of redflag.org AU Australia, published by Jerome the 3rd of January 2020, with the topic of Australia's profit-driven apocalypse. Some firefighters report flames 150 meters high. Read that again slowly. Flames 150 meters high, higher than a 40-story building. This is Australia's new summer normal. Towering flames and terrified humans huddling on the beach in the dark night or the orange glow of the day. Symbolic, panicked, thousands forced to flee, cities and towns shrouded for days and weeks, and now months in a smoke haze that ranges from irritating to toxic to deadly. An area burnt that purportedly dwarfs the land affected by both the Amazon and California fires. Dozens are dead or missing, and it is still early days. Melbourne's Age newspaper reports on the evacuation of Kooragang in Victoria's northeast on New Year's Eve. Anyone who wanted to join the convoy needed enough fuel to make it to Tallangatta, about 85 kilometers away, and wrote their names on a list. The list would be for the coroner if it all went wrong. The flames cast a searing light over the priorities of Australia's proprieties of Australia's rulers. We see firefighters making do with pathetic paper masks, while the government gifts $12 billion every year to fossil fuel companies, $29 billion if you count indirect subsidies. We see a military which can mobilize massive force to defend oil and empire in the Middle East and to capture refugees from those wars and deliver them to an island prison, but is apparently incapable of moving a civilian population to safety with anything approaching urgency. We see a political and economic elite that can't wrench itself away from the industries that have created this disaster. 6 of the 30 biggest corporations on Australia's stock exchange are mining or fossil fuel companies, probably a world record. Coal is 15% of export revenues. Australia's ruling class is one of the most carbon-addicted sections of a global elite that has always valued power and profit above our planet and our lives. We see the political expression of this economic interest. One wing of the political establishment, the Liberals and the Nationals, can't admit that this catastrophe has anything to do with climate change. The other wing of the political establishment, Labour and some dissident Liberals, will tut-tut about climate change while opening up vast new tracts of the country to the fossil fuel and mining industries. We see Murdoch-owned media going into overdrive with lies about fuel loads. The truth is that these fires are the predictable, in fact, the actually predicted consequence of climate change. For more than a decade, we've seen the cool, wet weather fronts and once brought winter rain to southern Australia's slip south, just as the science predicted. There is no guarantee that these rains will ever return with any regularity. Economist Ross Garnett himself, no radical, notes that the watershed of the country's greatest river system is heading for desertification and invites comparisons with the collapse of previous civilizations. We see communities left with no support. One of the few Aboriginal communities to get any coverage in the media is Lake Tyers in Gippsland, where a small tank on a ute is the only firefighting equipment available to the community. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Scott Morrison's new plane cost a reported $250 million. We see party after party at Kirribilli House while the country burns and Sydney chokes. In the desperate search for someone who will shake his hand, our fuckwit coal fondling Prime Minister seeks refuge with the national cricket team. In other words, we see Australian capitalism is one in all of its obscene coal-addicted glory. Searching for words to describe the catastrophe, many survivors, firefighters, and observers find one, apocalypse. And clearly it is for the dead, for their loved ones, for the communities blasted by columns of fire and turned into columns of smoke. But this isn't the end of days. It's not even the end of summer. There's plenty more of the country that will burn. Anyone who listens to the radio would have for months heard farmers, small-town mayors, truck drivers, and all sorts testifying that vast tracts of country down the east coast from Brisbane to Melbourne, dry for 10 years, has had no significant rainfall for 3 years and is tinder dry waiting to explode. Hopefully the meteorologists are right that the late shift of the monsoon up north might bring some rain down south later in January. Whether that will actually put the fires out, though, is anyone's guess. What the rest of this summer and the summers to come might bring doesn't bear a thought. And this is before we hit the tipping points discussed by climate scientists, before Labour and Liberals' Adani mine unleashes its profit-boosting load of poison into the atmosphere, before we hit the runaway part of the runaway climate change that Australia's corporate elites profit so handsomely from fueling, before Origin Energy's fracking in the Northern Territory turns a profit, before BHP announced another world record profit on the back of its world poisoning coal business. Unlike the biblical apocalypse, this seemingly unending fire season is no act of God. The most powerful people on earth and in Australia have made choices that have led to this, specific choices in the interest of profit and power. They won't stop just because of the fires, not while there's still profit to be made and political power to be held. At a rally outside the International Mining and Resources Conference in Melbourne in October, a Chilean activist put it well. They don't care if people burn. They don't care if the planet burns. They care only about their power, and they will be the lords of the ashes. No savior from on high will deliver us. The only path forward is to build a radical mass movement that can challenge and ultimately overthrow our rulers' creed. Their real religion, their alpha and their omega, their prophets and their power. Hopefully you enjoyed the write-up, everybody. Awesome if you hit the bell, leave me with some comments. Great if you subscribe. Kemo, Sabi out. We'll see you in the next one, everybody. Thanks a lot. Bye.